Yeehaw! We are back with another episode on the Daily Vedantic. And actually, this episode, we're going to be kicking off a 20-part series, 20 days going over the Bhagavad Gita. This first episode is going to be an overview of the world's most famous poem. The Lord's Song is what Bhagavad Gita means. And after the overview, we're going to dive into the top 10 major themes of the Gita, of this poem that you could read in 27 minutes, 700 or 701 verses, depending on the version or the counting. But 701 verses you could breeze through in 27 minutes if you wanted to. But it is so jam-packed with these themes that apply to all aspects of life. It is the whole philosophy in 701 verses. And there are 10 major themes that we're going to go over. And I've got them written down for the next 10 episodes. And it's going to be things like duty, action, union with the divine, detachment, the nature of reality, the concept of God, the immortality of the soul, righteousness and ethics, the illusion of the material world. You heard that right. If this is the first time that you're coming across the Daily Vedantic, we get into the deep end of the pool, the illusion of the material world, inner peace, self-control. We get into all of those 10 major themes within the world's most famous poem. And then we also are going to spend 10 episodes on these under-discussed themes, these themes that are so beautiful, that are right there, right in front of us, but are often overlooked within the Gita. Within the 3-year course at the ashram, 2 years of the 3-year course is spent. 2 whole years is spent on this short poem, which is a dialogue between the warrior prince Arjuna and his charioteer, Krishna. And his charioteer is a symbolic embodiment of God. So it's the most famous warrior prince in the land right before this great battle, this huge battle. And the warrior prince is having this crazy breakdown, just a total meltdown. He has to be taken right in the middle of the battlefield, ostensibly to survey both sides, but really he's getting nervous. And as they get away from both sides, and they're right in the middle of the battlefield, he has this just complete meltdown, asking his charioteer what they should do in the midst of his confusion, having no idea that his charioteer is this symbolic embodiment of God. He thinks it's just a childhood friend. And the entire poem is this dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna, this warrior prince and his charioteer. Such a kick-ass backdrop to a spiritual philosophical text. And the metaphor is the war within ourselves that we are all fighting each day. It's so beautiful in so many dynamics, from the symbolism to the actual articulation, the dialogue, the presentation of the different problems that Arjuna is going through, the articulation of all of these themes that I just mentioned, all within one single short text. And these episodes, this series is meant to be just a really simple 30,000-foot view on-ramp to what I hope many graduate on to actually reading the Bhagavad Gita, specifically Swami Parthasarathhi's version. And the link to it, if you just go to the show notes, you'll be able to click on a link to vedantaworld.org, and you can find his version of the interpretation and translation of the Gita, because from Sanskrit to English, there's a lot of flexibility. People can get really lost, especially if they're just coming from a Western viewpoint, trying to translate each word, versus he, as a English-trained lawyer, sits one foot in both worlds, and he was a Shakespearean scholar before tackling the timeless wisdom of Vedanta with the exact same fervor for each, if not infinitely more so, with figuring out the precise words for each Sanskrit word, for how to translate it into English for an English audience. But even more than that, the commentary on what each verse means. It's just beautiful. I could spend the whole episode just talking about that. But this episode is really just an outline for the next 20 days, with the first major theme thrown in as well. Before I get to that, I'll mention some of the minor themes. I say minor themes, but they're just as practical as anything else. And this will be after the first 10 major themes. These are going to be the themes that are under-discussed, but just as invaluable of a gift from that which is the Gita. And that includes the value of questions, the role of the individual in society, the interplay of fate and free will, the significance of contextual ethics, the concept of renunciation. What does renunciation actually mean versus the wild misinterpretation that we all walk around with, thinking that someone is, they must be spiritual because they've given up all their possessions, or to be spiritual, I've got to give up my career. Not only can you be a billionaire and study this philosophy daily, but this philosophy will actually get you there like a G6, much more efficiently than anything else. Integration of material and spiritual life, transformation through that inner battle that is the metaphor of the Gita. Many of us are not on a battlefield about to enter this great, huge battle, but all of us are fighting a war, whether we know it or not. So many of us are paralyzed and blind to the fact that not only are we in the midst of one, but we're losing pretty handedly. We talk about the power of surrender and the universality of spiritual truths. All of these things are covered in the next 20 days in this 20-part series. So let's kick it off with the first one. And that is, if you were to sum up the Gita in about 90 seconds, what is the Gita about? What is the Bhagavad Gita about? You could sum it up thusly. The first word of the Gita is Dharma, nature, law, which translates in this context as nature. And the last word is mama, mine. Dharma and mama, my nature. This poem, this entire wisdom is all about your nature, who and what you really are. That's what the Gita is about. And that's what we're going to get into over the next 20 days. So hop along, hit that subscribe, join for what I hope is going to be an enlightening journey each day. And I have a feeling you're going to take away a few different thoughts that profoundly impact the trajectory of your life with these simple, short episodes each day. And hopefully, many of you will graduate beyond these short little snippets and jump into reading the real thing with Swami's book. So we'll see you next time as we dive into the Gita. This is the Daily Vedantic.